Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I just read one of the most disliked books in the Horus Heresy, Descent of Angels by Mitchel Scanlon. And I have to say, a lot of this hate is very much undeserved. It's actually a pretty fun book. Sure, there are issues, but for how much it is hated upon, I expected far, far worse. Anyways, this book follows Zahariel, and to a lesser extent his cousin Nemiel, as they go from youngsters on Caliban to Knights of the Order, and finally to full Astartes. It shows how the Order took over Caliban, and how their reunion with the Terran Legion went. But more than that, it also just has a lot of cool monster hunting and world building. As always, if this sounds cool to you, then click the link in the description and buy it for yourself. First of all, let's talk about the reason why this book gets so much hate. It doesn't fit in the Horus Heresy whatsoever. This is book 6 of the series and thus follows the Dropside massacre we saw in Fulgrim. Rather than continuing this rapid downward spiral into warfare and betrayal, this book takes 50 steps back and starts on the other side of the galaxy at the dawn of the Great Crusade. So altogether, it makes very little sense that this book is located in the series at all, as it is basically an introduction to the Dark Angels that has nothing to do with anything else in the series. The other main issue of the book is that the writing style is not the best by any means. Some descriptions feel very amateuristic or unrealistic, an issue that is only worsened by the constant repetition of scenes in this book. To give you an idea, the book sometimes feels more like the chapters were intended to be in separate magazines, with the events of last chapter being repeated almost word by word at the start of the next one. Then finally, I suppose that the main characters also leave some things to be desired. They have an interesting dynamic together, which was interesting enough, but both Zahariel and Nemiel feel like really boring generic protagonists. They're young boys wanting to be knights because it's the cool thing to do, and of course they end up being the chosen ones, because the plot is that convenient. So yes, fair enough, there are some issues, but if you're willing to look past that, there is also some really cool aspects. Mainly I was very impressed with the portrayal of the Lion and Luther. Both of them take a more supporting role as side characters in this book, but still a very clear and fitting image is formed of both of them. The lion is a godlike creature for sure, but there's also an animalistic edge to him. Like a real lion, he can be territorial, uncompromising, violent and undiplomatic. It would have been no surprise if he had turned out to be the bad guy instead. Luther meanwhile is the opposite. He is very well spoken and charismatic, always trying to achieve things by diplomacy, by mingling with promising recruits, and using his cunning over his strength. That being said, the fact that he is always second to the lion is something this book frequently displays. The slowly growing resentment is very well explored, and while maybe a bit overdone near the end, I think his arc was pretty good overall. The world building too was quite nice, similar to Luther by Gav Thorpe. The monster-infested wildlands of Caliban never cease to amaze. That being said, I do prefer Luther in this case. It basically has the same lore, but then portrays it in a more realistic and well-written fashion. Although Descent of Angels does also have some excellent world building during the ending, which I won't spoil here, and that's very different from what's portrayed in Luther. Then finally, the plot is just really fun. Things happen very quickly, and we never linger at the same point for too long. Battles too are present, but never drag on, and there's a lot of focus on dialogue and cool events instead. I never disliked reading this book, and while it didn't wow me, I wouldn't have minded reading a sequel by the same author necessarily. So all in all, Descent of Angels gets 3 out of 5 Dark Angels. This book is basically an overview of early life on Caliban and the origin of the Dark Angels. The story is fun, and both the Legion and Luther are portrayed very well. Yes, the descriptive writing sometimes falls short, and improvements could be made here and there in terms of side characters, but if you're looking for a fun Dark Angels book, then this is not a bad choice. Just don't expect the Horus Heresy storyline to continue. But for now, that's all I got for you today. If you like the content, please consider subscribing or joining us on Patreon. Have a nice evening, and don't forget your nightly prayers to Nagash.